Welcome back, everybody. Today's date, February 6th, 2025. I'll stop by saying it's literally like Christmas every day I wake up. So much is going on, I can't even keep up with it. It's insane. In a good way, though. Like, there's a lot getting done. We're a little over 2 weeks in to the new administration. I couldn't be happier, if I'm being honest. President Trump has already completely exceeded any expectations that I had, and not for nothing, I try not to have any expectations. I've said in previous videos, I've lost a lot of faith in the system. I think a lot of people have. A lot of people are disenfranchised, and a lot of that has become the base of his support. There are people all across the globe making videos thanking him and Elon and just all the work that they're doing. It's just been wild times. He's trajected to be one of the greatest presidents of all time. And just with, like I said, 2 weeks alone, all the stuff that he's gotten done is pretty remarkable. Let's just recap that.
We are 2 weeks in, and President Trump is already delivering big wins for the American people. Let's go through the facts. On the border, President Trump declared a national emergency, deployed the military, ended catch and release, and reinstated Remain in Mexico. And already, illegal crossings are down 95%. We are resuming construction of the border wall, and Colombia's president is now offering his own plane for deportation of illegal Colombian immigrants. On the economy and energy, President Trump unleashed American energy, declared a national energy emergency, and killed Joe Biden's radical electric vehicle mandate. Wall Street is booming, AI investments skyrocketed to $500 billion, and there's $20 billion flowing into U.S. data centers across our country. President Trump is restoring law and order. He labeled the drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and he is deporting criminal illegal aliens, and he signed the Laken Riley Act into law. Draining the swamp, President Trump signed more than 45 executive orders. DEI has been purged from the government and our military, and lazy federal workers have been ordered back to the office. And when it comes to free speech and transparency, President Trump took 12 times more press questions than Joe Biden did in a week, reinstated 440 silenced journalists to the press room, and ended government censorship. Promises made, promises kept, and we're just getting started.
Okay, so I feel like that's a lot even to talk about right there. The fact that he has slowed the border crossings down to 5%, literally shutting down 95% of it, that's huge in itself. That was a catastrophe. And it just goes to show, if he did that in a couple weeks, then what was the Biden administration doing? Just straight up leaving the doors completely unlocked. That in itself is its own debate about how you enter in. You should do it legally. The past 4 years have been basically a big kick in the balls to anybody who came to this country legally and had to go through all the process and steps and what have you. But that's huge. Something else I wanted to talk about that is the fact that he's declaring the drug cartels to be enemies of the state, being terrorists, and that in itself is very profound because he's essentially attacking the CIA. The CIA is responsible for just about all the drugs that come into this country. I know it's controversial, and some people won't like to hear that, but that is literally the tip of the iceberg because CIA is responsible for a great many things. There's hundreds of books written about CIA espionage and subversion. We could go into that like crazy, but really, so like I said, he's pretty much attacking the CIA, and I got another video just to kind of help confirm that a little bit more. It's really like a debacle, and it's very, very corrupt. The they've been involved in just about every significant change around the world, good or bad, but some would argue that it's pretty much all bad. So yeah, I thought that was really wild because, well, it's really happening here. He's really actually like cleaning up the country in the sense of corruption. And that's why I'm excited for the first time. Honestly, it's really hard not to be a little amped up because I've been saying a lot of these things and talking about these things for more than half my life. I can only imagine how many enemies they are creating around not only the country but around the world. And it's evident that the Democratic Party is like really, really, really upset right now. They're really upset. They're having a hard time accepting any of it, to say the least. I live in Massachusetts, a very blue state, and I have a lot of Democratic friends. They're not far left, I'll have to say. I'm not trying to upset anybody, but it's like, where does the Democratic Party go from here? Their numbers and approval ratings are so low. They're at historic lows. A lot of people are disenfranchised with the Democratic Party. And, you know, they have right to be. You know, they've been pushing certain agendas for a long time while turning a blind eye to a lot of really important topics and safety of everybody else, and all to cater to, you know, a select few and a very, very minute group of people. It's like the Twilight Zone. It really is. I thought that was really fascinating to hear, and like I said, to actually have something being done about it. It's like it's the government fighting itself. It's really freaking wild, especially deploying all the military to the border that he has. I think just in a couple days ago, he sent another 1,500 troops down there. They got all sorts of equipment, Humvees, helicopters, Ospreys, all kinds of stuff. It's like, wow, it's literally kind of a war zone over there. But it is what it is, right? You have to do whatever you have to do to protect and stop some of this fentanyl from coming in. And that's just the beginning of it. Like I said, the CIA is really responsible for just about all the drug trafficking. And just to reiterate, the people trafficking and all sorts of things, when you're the gatekeeper, you have a lot of power. So that's why it's important to understand that some of these positions and some of these agencies wield way too much power. Like, it's too much. And yeah, like I said, I've been saying that for a very long time. We'll just move on to the next clip of, I believe it's Trump basically gave every CIA agent and everybody in the bureau to step down, basically saying they're no longer needed for their services. So I thought that was pretty wild.
Fox News alert. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the CIA has reportedly just offered a buyout to its entire workforce. Everyone in the agencies telling employees late today they can quit their jobs and receive about 8 months of pay and benefits. It's a part of Trump's push to downsize the federal government. More as we get it.
Yeah, so that's powerful. Telling you, don't show back up, please. Telling you, you know, you're no longer needed here. And for good reason, too. Like I said, there's a lot of corruption. And same with the FBI and all the alphabet agencies, the DEA, ATF, DOD, and all of them. They're just ripe with corruption. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I can't wait to hear a little bit more about that, what comes of it. Just trying to move along. Pam Bondi got sworn in as Attorney General, which is pretty awesome.
Do solemnly swear
I, Pamela Bondi, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
she looks very promising. I don't know a lot about her, but at just seeing her in the Senate hearings for her vetting, I loved how she answered the questions. And even though that was like a debacle in itself, there was so many ridiculous questions to all his cabinet picks. It was really embarrassing in the sense of like some of the line of questioning, but the way she handled herself was impeccable. She had great answers, and like I said, just a little bit that I do know about her, she does look promising. So I think that's she's obviously picked for a reason. I can't wait to follow her on some of these things, and not for nothing. I'll show you a clip of something that made me smile immediately. So that's some good news, and it looks promising for Kash Patel, RFK, and Tulsi Gabbard. It looks like they're probably going to get it. Just kind of going back over things, the Democrats are so upset. Some of their lines of questioning, and they're all, just about every single one of them, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to find out soon, but they're all voting down his picks. And it's like they're just they're pandering to themselves. They're not listening to the people. The people have spoken. They have picked these. They picked Trump. Trump has picked these people for good reason too. Like, first off, he's a very smart guy. He's incredible intelligence, and he's been through the battle long enough, and he's learned who is who, and he's been already involved for over 8 years. So why are you giving up such a fight? They are literally staying overnight on the Senate floor to protest and to slow things down and to just try to throw wrenches in the cog. And it's embarrassing. Like I said, it's like, who do you work for? I thought you worked for the American people, and the American people have spoken. They want these people in. They're incredible people. They have impeccable records. And just listening to some of the things that they're proposing and bringing is absolutely phenomenal. Like, how could you fight this? But, well, they're fighting it tooth and nail, and I just don't understand. Like, you're really digging yourself a deep hole, and I don't know. I just don't see some of them getting out, which would be a good thing because a lot of them need to go. It's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Here's a quick clip of our new Attorney General who just got sworn in and what she had to say about Bill Clinton. Well, it was like music to my ears because I was like, yeah, this is a long time coming.
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He traveled internationally with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was on the plane called the Lolita Express because it supposedly had a bed in there where Jeffrey Epstein had young girls. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who hasn't spoken to him in many years, over a decade, after he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for bad behavior. So that's the difference there. And I think Americans see the two-tier justice system. But, you know, we don't know. They're saying Clinton has not been to his private island, but he has traveled all over the world with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know why AG Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. You know, they're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Our new Attorney General. Doesn't she sound awesome? I thought so. That's something that's been talked about for a very long time, is Bill Clinton being tied to Jeffrey Epstein and the Clintons and the whole Clinton Foundation. Everybody wants the list to be made public. it's already out there. There's a lot of people who already know. There's a lot of suspects. There's a lot of people who are on the list for the Lolita, and so that's all out there. But to be bringing it in on the news and to be actually, having our elected officials finally doing something about it, well, I think like this is big news, and it will become big news if it's actually released and they go after the people that are involved with this guy and they stop busting that whole ring open. You're gonna see, mark my words, you're gonna see the entire world change. A lot of people, a lot of powerful people were involved with that. So will we actually see justice being finally served? That's that would be a dream come true. But I mean, if you really want to do something, if you really want to make some changes here, then it has to be done. There's no way around it. It just has to be done. Looks promising. It sounds promising, and it doesn't seem like President Trump is just all talk either. Like, this is the first time in history where big shifts are happening. This is epic times, absolutely epic times. To be honest, I can't even believe it got as far as it has. It's kind of wild. It blows my mind, to be completely honest with you. So let's just go back real quick to the whole border thing. And I thought it was kind of funny that, he imposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada. And you've seen the news outlets immediately freak out. And they were like, you're going to pay more and it's going to drive prices up and la la la. It was wild to just watch the rhetoric come out right away. And within 36 hours, they seceded to the demands. Not the demands, but like, his requests. And all it was to just strengthen the border, put your own people on there and help us out a little bit doing what we want to do. I didn't think it was unreasonable, but it seemed the left that weren't having it. They just are hell-bent on fighting him tooth and nail on everything. And it just so happened, like I said, it was like they said it was a trade war and it's going to destroy the economy. And like I said, 36 hours, it was resolved because they are going to do it. They're going to help out. They're going to put their military on the border. So it just goes to show the fanatic responses from the legacy media and the left, unfortunately. It's just really, really wild. So that's, I think, all good news. That's all really good stuff. Actually, this is an interesting fact that I didn't know, but President Trump has authored over 40 plus books. And I thought that was really wild. That's a lot. He wrote The Art of the Deal. So if you think you have any business even thinking about like how he operates, how he works, you're just never going to have an idea. You're never going to know what his next move is. Nobody does. I'm not even sure if he does. But he's very effective and he gets things done. And this is all good stuff. All real good stuff. So women are safe again. And I think like that is a huge one. Another weird Orwellian reality matrix where why did we even get this far where we were allowing men into women's bathrooms and to compete in their sports is beyond me. I just don't understand that. Like, why even have a women's league or a men's league if it's just going to be, well, you're allowed to go in as long as, such and such. I like I said, I don't have any problems with trans people, but imagine Mike Tyson stepping in the ring with a woman. Like, I don't care how big she is or whatever. Like, you can't, he would absolutely kill them. He kills men. What has happened? What has gone on is beyond like the Twilight Zone. It's just I'm speechless. I literally am speechless. So yeah, it's I had a clip somewhere, but I can't find it. But I think you already know now that he signed an executive order no longer allowing men in women's sports and or in their bathrooms and locker rooms and what have you. And So that's great news. A lot getting done, like I said. I think that's a win. For the next quick little topic, you might have noticed that like eggs have gone through the roof, and or there's shortages of eggs at the grocery store, no matter what brand and what. This was something I just didn't even know. It's something simple, but I figured I'd just bring it to everybody's attention because, well, it's fascinating and weird to say the least. And I'm sure they're going to blame like the bird flu or whatever. I don't know the backstory on it.
Christian Day Talk.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage.
She's a savage. Some of her wording is awesome. I really get a kick listening to her. Pretty wild watching her deliver some of the news for the next 4 years and reports. 100 million chickens murdered. Wow. And yeah, there's inflation and this and that, but oh man, what a debacle, huh? Another quick update on something we talked about a couple podcasts back. It was the drones. A lot of people were asking me about my opinion on it and what have you, and I kind of gave it for what it was. And yeah, it turns out they love to sensationalize the news, and they'll use any and everything that they can. And usually it's they're the ones for disinformation or holding information back to the people. And it's something as simple as this. They could have told the people. They could have told us. But they never do. That's just how it is. They work in secrecy. Subversion. But here's a quick update on the drones that were flying around New Jersey a few weeks back.
An update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news.
FAA, all authorized, hobbyists, whatnot. Why couldn't you just tell us that? It's so ridiculous. Just kind of capitalizing on a couple things that I mentioned before about Nancy Pelosi and the insider trading. Stuff like that has to end. And all the politicians that deal with such dealings, it should not be allowed at all. And when you're a career politician and your wealth just keeps doubling and doubling and doubling, and you're just making all sorts of money, it's, I don't know, kind of suspect. It appears that it's caught the attention of the president, and this is what he had to say about it.
And Nancy Pelosi has a little problem because her husband sold their Visa stock. They had a lot of Visa stock one day before Visa was announced that Visa is being sued by the Department of Justice. Think of that. Nancy Pelosi sold vast amounts of Visa stock one day before the big lawsuit that we all read about a few days ago was brought against Visa. You think it was luck? I don't think. She should be prosecuted. Nancy Pelosi should be prosecuted for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Prosecute her. Bring her to trial. Open up her books. And these are just things, like I said, how do you stand behind people like this? These are our elected officials or alleged elected officials, and they're all corrupt. So how do you back them? How do you listen to anything they have to say? And if you listen to them, they're literally blabbering buffoons. Like, they're drunken morons. It's embarrassing. It really is. It's embarrassing that they're still in office and in power and they actually have a say over people's lives. This sort of thing has to stop. And hopefully, you know, more people start bringing and shedding light to it, because this is how I think real change happens. It's not just a coincidence that I was talking about this weeks ago or months ago. This is what's really going on. And like I said, the fact that it's actually coming out of the president's mouth it's kind of cool. It's cool. I'm with it. Prosecutor, let's go. We got a lot of work to do. I think we're headed in the right direction still. I think this is all good stuff. And this is only in 2 weeks. I'm blown away. I really am. I don't know what to say. More things that the conspiracy theorists were telling you about. And we're going to get into it in the next podcast with USAID. Wow. I think that's going to be the smoking gun. I think that story in itself is going to have ramifications that are impossible to gauge. We're going to see what comes out of that. But everything that's already come out, it's insane. Absolutely insane. It's mind-blowing. I'm doing the next podcast fully on that because there's so much to talk about, and it's so deep and dark that we gotta dedicate a whole show to it. But moving along, as I said, it kind of ties into the next subject, but COVID-19 is now being admitted that it was made in a lab. USAID was actually the go-between for the funds. So let's get into that, because that's powerful stuff.
CIA actually revealed that they do also believe that COVID-19 was from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. How is the president planning on responding to this additional intel from the CIA, and will it impact how he responds to them with tariffs?
Yeah, kudos to John Ratcliffe for revealing that truth and that fact to the American people. Many years too late, the Biden administration had a chance to let the American people know the truth about that, and for some reason, they chose not to. I also would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again.
So he was telling you over 4 years ago the truth right away. And the next administration, the Biden administration, chose to completely cover it up and use its own narratives because they had a big agenda. And we all seen that agenda. We had to live through it. And let us never forget what went on the past 4 years. That was insane. Talk about a dismantling of the Constitution. It changed the world, and they knew that. Now, I guess my question to you is, how would you feel if you found out that it was all done by design, that it was a plan to create this virus and to release it to push a global agenda? Would that upset you at all? Because this is what the conspiracy theorists were screaming all along. And how did we know? How did any of us know all this stuff? That's the real question, right? Like, we've been following it, and we've been paying attention, and we know who the players were. And we tried to warn people. I did, at least. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to start this, because I didn't feel like just talking to people in person was enough. I felt like I needed a bigger platform to voice my concerns on things. And I wish I started this that long ago. I wish I could have reached more people. I don't know if it would have made any difference, but I felt like I did my best for the time to tell people and for what I knew at the time, but I knew it was not the zombie apocalypse. Hell, I've prepped for the zombie apocalypse. I was like, yeah, all right, let's go. But it never materialized. What did materialize was a global agenda to strip away and to push and to see how far they can go with a narrative and with fear, straight up fear, lies, deceit, deception. And they've killed people. They literally killed people. Not to like go into all of that right now, but we've maimed so many people, and the ramifications I feel like are going to be heard for the rest of our lives. I think, unfortunately, I feel like this is just the beginning. We're going to start learning more and more how detrimental these things were. The research is starting to come out, and just what we've learned is horrendous. I'm
going to show you a slide from the authorities in Western Australia, and from this you can decide whether you want to watch this video or not. The rate of adverse reactions to COVID vaccines has now been published for 2021. It's 6 months late, but it is also a very honest report. The blue line here, the blue arrow, shows when COVID vaccines were introduced. These are adverse events following immunisations reported by the Western Australian authorities, or to the Western Australian authorities, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, when the COVID vaccines were introduced. And we see this massive increase in adverse reactions to vaccines which have been reported. Now, of course, immediately you're going to say, well, just a minute, there was a lot more COVID vaccines given. Well, that's true. To an extent, that's true. But the rate of adverse reactions in the COVID vaccines were over 20, about 24 times higher per vaccine dose given. So this is a quite outrageous amount of adverse reactions. It's great that Western Australia have come up with this data. It's 6 months later than we were expecting this report, but they've come up with it. And it's a very honest report. Let's hope the United States government and the United Kingdom government follow through with the level of candour that we're seeing from the Western Australian authorities. A description of the impact of the programme of COVID vaccines starting in February 2021, which is when the programme started. And again, we remind ourselves just after that, the adverse reactions just went through the roof compared to what they had been in the past.
It's literally like one of the worst horror movies you could ever even conceive. And like I said, they got away with it. So never forget what they did to us during the past 4 years. Yeah, mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. And that's one of the reasons, part of my resolve, as far as like all the research I've done on the vaccines and the jabs. It plays all in with it. And not to go too deep down this, but like I worked in healthcare right up to COVID, and I could see the agenda 6 years prior, when the way they were forcing the flu shots on everybody, and then they were threatening them with their job, or, well, you have to wear a mask. And then they almost went to a point, if not, did get to the point of, well, it doesn't matter if you wear a mask either way. Like, you still have to get the vaccine if you want to work here. And I fought that tooth and nail. Ask the people who worked with me. I was a little activist for sure at my old job. It was so blatant. And the fact that it was a test run, and I knew that, I wrote about that literally 6-7 years ago. I have pictures online of me all masked up and my discontent for it. Yeah, it's just wild. Going back to the question, like, how do you feel about that? Like, you should be absolutely outraged. If you have any sort of faith in the system and the government, after that, that just boggles my mind completely. Like, you have to literally do mental gymnastics for it to make sense. But it just goes back to, you need to use critical thinking, especially when they're rolling out such situations where you have to make, possibly, even if you may or may not think about it like this, but it's a life-changing decision. It really is. It's a medical procedure. Any vaccines, mRNAs, or whatever the hell they're called. Do your research before you put anything into your body. We're finding out now, like, just what the food has done. And that's its own subject. One chemical in the food has detrimental effects, especially things that have been around for 100 years, like sugar cane. That alone, you know? Like, so what are the ingredients in these vaccines doing? Especially when you read them and you find out what they are. It's like, what? Is this real? Is this real life? Use critical thinking and stay vigilant for sure, especially when your government is pushing an agenda. And this is for everybody around the world because it was global. Fascinating that that's coming out now. And, well, it's been out. People have known. Trump told you 4 years ago. But what did the news do? Same thing. See what I mean? The proof is in the pudding. They're showing you who the enemy is. They have exposed themselves. More on that to come, because they're finding out that our tax dollars, like I said, with that U.S. aid, has now been paying the news outlets to run their own propaganda and their agenda. So, independent news, huh? Woo! Yeah, a lot's coming out. I can't wait to do that podcast. That's coming. I'm going to do it today. Speaking of food and what have you, did you know Bill Gates is one of the largest farmland owners in America? I don't know about the world. I don't know what else he's got his hands in. I'm sure it's not just this country, but not only does he have his hands fully in vaccines and responsible for a lot of that, he's also one of the largest farmland owners. So what's up with that? Do some research on Bill Gates. This guy is a monster. He's an absolute monster. He's single-handedly, like, lobbying certain members of the government to keep the Epstein list completely sealed up. He does not want that list to come out. And possibly, who knows, that probably played a big role in his divorce that just happened not too long ago. But here's just a glimpse of some of the agenda that they had planned. Will they get away with it? I don't know. They got a lot of opposition now. They got a lot of people that are learning the truth.
In 2020, an exclusive organisation for the world's most powerful people, called Stakeholders, enacted a 10-year transition to a global, authoritarian political system called stakeholder capitalism.
It's a funeral of shareholder capitalism, and it's a birth of stakeholder capitalism.
You have shown us the way forward.
One of their agendas by 2030 is to own the food supply chain.
Bill Gates became the largest individual owner of farmland.
According to their reports, this is what they want us to eat.
GMO wheat, every piece of corn I've ever eaten is GMO corn. So these are things that billions of years of using these products have been done. Anyway, these are proven products.
The stakeholders have an initiative to ban livestock.
Cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions. So we need to change cows.
And increase our consumption of
artificial meat, like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
We'll have the convenience of printing it from our homes. Or luckily for us,
today the European Commission has officially declared mealworms to be food.
We can choose real meat that's climate change friendly.
Mealworms, crickets, grasshoppers. These tiny insects, just over 2 centimeters long, could be key to feeding the planet.
As the stakeholders continue to scare us with their climate change propaganda,
every piece of GMO corn I eat it all. Like, I highly doubt that. I really do. I'm certain he's got access to much cleaner food than the population has. I'm not buying that at all. And then he's like, billions of years of technology or whatever the hell you said. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? I don't think we've been around that long, but maybe we have. I don't think you've been around that long, nor is this technology. A lot of this technology came out in the early 90s when, it was all done in shadows, quietly. No one even knew. The switcheroo. Once again, the statistics speak for themselves. Why are we the sickest nation? It's not just because I'm personally saying, I mean, I don't know, but it's definitely not just the vaccines. I think it's a concoction of everything. The fluoride, the food, the pharmaceuticals, the vaccines, even the air we breathe has been contaminated. So I think it's just the combination of things, and the overall body burden can only take so much, but this is one of the reasons, one of the big proponents as to why the people are sick. More to come on that. Let's continue.
Climate change. It threatens to tip tens of millions of people over the edge into food insecurity, followed by malnutrition, mass hunger and famine in a crisis that could last for years.
We also expose the World Economic Forum's initiatives.
The Netherlands will host the World Economic Forum Food Innovation Hubs
that are designed to remove ownership of family farms.
This means turfing people off their farms.
Massive farmer protests have broken out around the Netherlands.
Thousands of farmers have been protesting on the outskirts of Delhi.
Trudeau is not alone. Leaders from 4 countries, they want governments like India to scrap farmer-friendly laws.
Good evening. Farmers all over the country walked off the paddock today and took their tractors to town.
Every 5th farmer you see here today will be gone by 2030.
Hundreds of French farmers drove their tractors to Paris.
Last weekend, once again, I had a colleague who killed himself.
You're not the only farmer with this problem.
Farmers are heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken, and they don't know where to turn.
Thousands of farmers from southeast Mercia.
So from all over Ireland, we have no option. We are not paying carbon tax.
Hundreds of farmers have driven their tractors into the centre of Belgium's capital.
Thousands of farmers from across Germany descended on the city.
When we all have to go, where does the food come from?
Our food security is in grave danger. To watch our free documentary about stakeholder capitalism and help fund an investigation into the stakeholders' plan for acquiring the food supply chain, visit yellow.forum.
See the direction we've been going in? And he said it himself. Oh, I invested in these companies. Well, that would be wicked convenient, right? If you actually had stocks or you invented some of this stuff where you're getting a cut from every single human on the earth, if that's like what they now eat. This is like diabolic stuff here. Like, this is not, once again, it's an absolute horror movie. Imagine if this were to be implemented. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. But this is why it's so important to to make change. This is ridiculous. Push out every single farmer. No more livestock. No more actual food, but like make lab-grown meat. This is, I'm sorry, Twilight Zone. Absolute Twilight Zone. I mean, to each their own. You want to eat that stuff, you go ahead. But if you're going to force the rest of the population to follow suit, we're absolutely going to have a revolution on our hands. There's no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I will head it myself. I will not stand by for this stuff. No way. As I was saying, the dude is an absolute monster. He needs to go. I'm tired of him, people like that having influence in our government. And not for nothing, the Democrats are screaming right now about how a rich billionaire is stepping in who has no say and he shouldn't have any authority or this or that. And first off, Elon Musk specifically is an absolute genius. I trust him far more than any other politician. But yeah, let's just keep going. Since we're on the food and the vaccines.
If you are unvaccinated and the virus comes into your community, the virus will hunt you out. The virus hunts down the unvaccinated.
The virus will find the unvaccinated. That's what they all say.
And it's a virus that will find you if you're not vaccinated.
If you're unvaccinated, it will find you.
The virus is literally finding unvaccinated people.
It will find the unvaccinated.
We're seeing COVID-19 tracking down unvaccinated people.
You know, if you're unvaccinated and you're in circulation, you're going to get it.
Well, the Delta variant of COVID-19 has the potential to spread through an unvaccinated community like wildfire.
The Delta variant is so aggressive that if you are unvaccinated, it's going to find you.
Delta is finding the unvaccinated.
The Delta variant will find you. If you're not vaccinated, it will find you.
The virus tends to find places that are under-vaccinated.
It does not just move to city centres. It finds the unvaccinated wherever they are.
So you might live in the middle of the desert, but it can still find you.
But if you're unvaccinated, this virus is looking for you.
You know, this virus, this infection will seek out the people who are either unvaccinated or have only had one jab and are not fully protected.
The virus does seem to be finding older people who have not received that third dose.
We'll ultimately find just about everybody.
But these 3 people, 2 of them weren't vaccinated, 1 had just had their first dose. The virus has found them.
Well, it never found me, and I'm unvaccinated, and I've been around many people who had COVID over the past 4 years and whatnot. A lot of just everything I've been around, and I've never, I'm unscathed. So there you go. It just goes to show the propaganda and how crazy it really is. And now we're learning who's funding it. We are. Our tax dollars are paying for the propaganda. It's mind-blowing. It really is. Like, you can't make this stuff up. This is so insane. And this is why I've said it time and time again, where it's so important to control the narrative. They want to be able to have the control and the ability to scare the shit out of everybody. Because when you step into your fear and you step into that fight or flight, logic goes right out the window, and you'll do irrational decision making, and you won't use critical thinking, and you'll just and then next thing you know it, you know, you're forcing your friends and your family and your loved ones in fear to be like, oh, you got to take this. And like I said, never forget what they've done to us. Anyway, if you're skeptical about vaccines, you have every right to be. If you look up some of the ingredients in there, that'll make your head pop off. In fact, we go into that a little. I actually hit on that almost just about every podcast, but if you watch my previous one, there was a guy on Tucker Carlson that was talking about how they're cultured, and if that doesn't blow your mind, freak you out, I don't know. To each their own, like I said. You do you. I'll do me. Leave me alone. My personal opinion here, but like now you'll understand why, as RFK is now scrutinized some of the vaccines, and he comes out straight saying, I just follow the science. I'm following the paperwork. I'm following. RFK admits himself that he is not anti-vax. He's pro-vax. He wants to follow the science, but the thing is the science ain't adding up. And he's done a lot of research into Anthony Fauci. He's done a lot of research on vaccines and health. This guy knows what he's doing. He's like one of the best guys we can get in there. They have been giving him a hard time in the Senate hearings in vetting him. I think he's going to get it, but needless to say, it shows you, I hate to say this, but the left, again, they are hanging on to these vaccines, and they are fully all about it. And it's like, where are you getting your information? Oh, wait, who's paying you? And it just turns out that a lot of them are being paid by the pharmaceutical company. So it all makes sense when you follow the money. It all makes sense. It's so simple. It's simple math. But we're going to get into that a little bit. And here's just some clips frantic Elizabeth Warren, because clearly she is really upset about not only the nominee but the fate of the vaccine companies, and she openly admits it. Listen, there's some tells here.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
no,
and I'm not going to agree to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So let's do a quick count here of how, as Secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you could influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint people to the CDC vaccine panel.
Oh, so he'll be able to put his findings with a government letterhead. Wow, that's what you're scared of? Because a lot of this stuff is already out there and published and all that and what have you. He's been telling it for a long time, but now that he gets to have a stamp on it, you think that's going to make any difference? That's what you're worried about? This shit is just mind-blowing.
Who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. You could remove vaccines from special compensation programs, which would open up manufacturers to mass torts. You could make more injuries eligible for compensation, even if there is no causal evidence. You could change vaccine court processes to make it easier to bring junk lawsuits. You could turn over FDA data to your friends at the law firm, and they could use it however it benefited them. You could change vaccine labeling. You could change vaccine information rules. You could change which claims are compensated in the vaccine injury compensation program.
Sounds all like good stuff to me. I mean, if he finds something detrimental, then yes, he'll have the ability to do that. And why? What is wrong with that? It sounds pretty frantic to me, but whatever. And yes, like he knows his stuff, Elizabeth Warren. He's not on the payroll of the pharmaceutical companies, which she's worried about when she's doing it. She's getting her kickbacks. It's like, talk about gaslighting. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits, so that what you do as Secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
Pending lawsuits. They're pending. So it's already happened. He's not even in. So there's a lot of lawsuits against these companies, but they are immune and they can't get sued. So he wants to open up that where you can actually sue these drug companies and hold them liable. What is wrong with that? The fact that they're not liable, that's the scary stuff. They can do whatever they want, have any adverse reactions, which that's a debate in itself. Is it adverse reactions or just straight reactions because they knew these things cause massive damage and harm? But anyway, I'll digress on that. Let's continue. Let's keep going.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Imagine living with this woman. Oh my God. She has no control. She has no control. And the way she yells, I just can't stand it. Like, oh my God. Massachusetts, what are we thinking? Why is she still in office?
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
How about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
You won't make money. I make money off vaccines and pharmaceuticals, but make sure you don't. Like, this is psychotic. It's really psychotic. That's all I have to say. Yeah, she needs to go. I can't believe she's been in office for so long. But when you're making millions of dollars, well, there's your incentive. More on Elizabeth Warren, because I want her exposed. I want her out. I voted against her. I'll just continue to keep voting. I'm going to keep exposing these people, because as long as they're there, we need them out. They really need to go. So I am fully against Elizabeth Warren.
His answers are he intends to continue to make money off his anti-vax position. Look, he says he won't go to work for drug companies because the American people have a right to know that the decisions made while he is Secretary of HHS are only for the good of the American people. And yet, he wants to keep a piece of the action on every one of these anti-vax lawsuits. And what that means potentially is, as Secretary of HHS, he can make those lawsuits a whole lot more profitable. In fact, he may have the opportunity to bankrupt the vaccine manufacturers, and then nobody gets vaccine.
Are you worried that he's in the position to serve his own interest?
That is the problem. He has said he will protect his right to make money off the position of Secretary of HHS. That means that every decision he makes could be for the American people or could be just to benefit RFK Jr.
Do you think any of the...
Okay, so that's why that clip is very telling, because not only is it based in fear, because that's what they do, it's the Sith, the dark side. Everything's, we're going to die. We need our vaccines. I have to. No one's going to get vaccines. So what she said was, he may bankrupt them. Not him specifically. If he opens it up where they can be sued, then people will bankrupt the company. And what is wrong with that? I'm sorry, but if I had a product, if I developed a product and I started selling it to people and it started killing people or creating massive problems, and the people would sue me, and I would have to compensate and or go to jail and what have you. So why are they so special? And if they can fall, then we need to let them. Bottom line. So if they can go bankrupt because of lawsuits, then that's the way it needs to be. Who are you protecting here? Are you protecting the people, or are you protecting the vaccine companies? It's right there. So there you have it. You got to go. He wants the science, like he said, and the science isn't there. They've lied to us completely. It was made in a lab. This was a planned pandemic. So what are you worried about? Well, she's just worried about protecting her interest, and she's doing the job in which she was put in there for, elected by corporate pharmaceutical companies.
Hey, Massachusetts, are you good? How in the hell did you end up with 2 pharma shills as your senators? Both of these senators have been very outspoken about RFK Jr., and we are going to do what we do best. We're going to see who's bribing, funding them, starting with Elizabeth Warren. But this is what she posted today. Say goodbye to your smile and say hello to polio. That's what's on the horizon if RFK Jr. becomes the Secretary of HHS. And puts out this scripted video. And she even mentions how she's terrified of losing her fluoride from her water. But let's see if she really just cares about our health. She's received $491,000 from health professionals and $125,000 from pharmaceuticals or health products. Oh, and don't forget about the $108,000 from hospitals and nursing homes, for a grand total of $871,000 from the healthcare industry. And this is actually her cheapest selection out of all of them. And by the way, I always get asked where I find my data. This is Open Secrets. They do an amazing job. They collect their data right from the FEC website. The FEC website looks like this. This is where all the candidates have to report what they bring in and what they spend. And then Open Secrets takes this data and puts it together. So it's easy for us to digest. And as I was digging through all of this data, there's something else that caught my attention. I found this article that said that Elizabeth Warren condemned super PACs. Now she's benefiting from one. And this article talks about this Persist PAC. And at the time, they had no idea who was funding the PAC. But now we do. Carla Jerviston gave a whopping $14.6 million to support Elizabeth Warren for the Senate. This is her, and she is a physician. Not only did she attend Stanford, her father was a professor there for over 50 years. And to honor her father, she helped fund the construction of the new Stanford Medical Center. You know who else has ties to Stanford? Pfizer. Back in 2010, they gave a grant to Stanford saying that there's no strings attached. Put your hand up if you actually think that's true. I'm sure nobody. And the grant was $3 million to back new curriculum. But wait, there's more. Pfizer funded an independent educational grant program through, surprise, Stanford. How do all of these dots connect? Well, honestly, that's kind of difficult. As I was doing research, it is very clear that a lot has been hidden here. But this article may give us a hint. Looks like Stanford professors have been found to receive money right from big pharma companies like Eli Lilly. Why does this all matter? Funny enough, I think Dr. Casey Means has already given us the answer. She went to Stanford and was top of her class. She talks about how there was never a class about nutrition, about exercise. She simply learned a diagnosis and a pill to solve it. Because the minute that we find out that we can heal ourselves with food, think about whose bottom line is going to hurt real bad. So to summarize, in addition to all of the money that Elizabeth Warren receives through the healthcare industry, she also has some funny ties to Carla here. Do you think she's actually really concerned about him bringing back polio? Or is he just going to hurt her donors' bottom line?
I don't know, folks. I don't know. Like I said, I don't understand how they have gotten this far. It's funny because now that a lot of the censorship is over, which, by the way, Trump signed that too. Well, you heard that in the beginning, where no more censorship. Internets. I don't even know. I don't know what the extent of that is, but a lot of this stuff started re-emerging on X. Thank you, Elon. Absolutely saving the freaking world. Protecting free speech. We're going to just stay with this. We're staying with this. She needs to go. Here's a couple more clips of just some of the stuff he's discussing.
Tell me about dyes and things that you're concerned about, because I get more talk about that than anything.
We have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country because FDA employs a standard called the GRAS standard and looks at any new chemical as innocent until proven guilty. In Europe, they have 400 ingredients in their foods. Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops for the United States alone. It is loaded with red dye, blue dye, yellow dye, and many, many other ingredients. They make the same product for Canada that's all vegetable dyes. And for Europe,
10,000 chemicals are allowed in our food here. Europe has 400. Although that seems like a lot in itself, but that's huge difference. That is monumental difference. I can't wait for this guy to get in. Oh my God. It's gonna be a new world. It's only been a couple of weeks just for Trump, and Elon, and, you know, they're like pretty much just passing the ball to each other, you know, hey, what's up? Where's the rest of the crew? Like, I cannot wait for all his picks to get in there and just start unleashing hell. Oh my God. I'm not going to be able to keep up with this stuff. Let's continue.
If you eat a McDonald's French fry in this country, it has 11 ingredients. You eat the same product in Europe, it has 3. We are allowing these companies, because their influence over this body, over our regulatory agencies, to mass poison American children. And that's wrong. It needs to end. And I believe I'm the one person who's able to end it.
Thank you.
This is one of the reasons why they're fighting him tooth and nail. Well, not only because of their, you know, buddies and their kickbacks and all that jazz, but the dude actually wants to make a change. He wants to protect the children and the future of the country. Like, if you're not behind this guy, who are you behind? What's your agenda? Like, who do you work for? How can you not get behind that? Health. It doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. So, if you're against him, then I would just fully assume that you're completely corrupt. Gotta go.
You know, I coached for 40 years. In the last 4 or 5 years I coached, I'd never seen like the run on drugs our young people are being given by doctors across this country. We have a attention deficit problem in this country. You know, attention deficit, when you and I were growing up, our parents didn't use a drug, they used a belt and whipped our butt, you know, and told us to sit down. Nowadays, we give them Adderall and Ritalin. It's like candy across college campuses and high school campuses. Mr. Kennedy, what are we going to do about that?
Today, 15% of American kids are on Adderall. And there's clearly a major problem with overprescription, not just with our children, but with our entire population. We have 4.2% of the world's population, and we take 50% of the pharmaceutical drugs. And there's a recent study by Peter Ghosh, who is one of the founders of the Cochrane Collaboration, that showed that prescription drugs are now the 3rd largest cause of death in our country after cardiac arrest and cancer. We're not getting healthier. Americans are getting less and less healthy. 70% of pharmaceutical profits globally come from our country, which has 4.2% of the world's population. We're the only country that allows full-scale pharmaceutical ads on TV. And we're all being told you can make yourself, you can eat anything you want, you can smoke anything you want, you can do anything you want, and there'll be a drug to fix you in the end. And it is not a good formula. And our kids are getting sicker and sicker. They're not getting better. Nobody here, all the people here who are defending this current system and defending these pharmaceutical industry profits, many of whom are taking huge amounts of money from the pharmaceutical industry, millions of dollars for many of these senators. And none of that, this is not making our country healthier. It's making us sicker. We need to get rid of these conflicts. We need good science, and we need good leadership that is able to stand up to these big industries and not bend over for them.
So RFK straight up truth bombing out there, saying a lot of these people are taking cuts, and this is why they hate him so much. But that's those numbers are staggering, where 4% of the world population, and yet we take over 50% of the pharmaceuticals. This is why kids are all messed up. And he's trying to genuinely bring health back. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. I think it might be in one of these clips, but obesity, diabetes is just through the roof, and it's become the new normal. You've heard that term before, right? And over 70% of the youth are not eligible to serve in the military. Like I said, these numbers are insane. Finally, we get somebody in there who actually wants to bring change, and They are fighting tooth and nail. Like I said, it's so blatant what side they're on. They're for themselves. They're for their own special interests. They're not for the people. So anybody who's not for the people right now or ever, they need to go. That's it. It's time. It's truly time we drain the swamp.
When I was a 10-year-old boy, my uncle was in the White House. The chronic disease among American children was 2%. Today it's 66%. The cost of chronic disease to our country when my uncle was president was zero. There were not even treatments for chronic disease at that time. Today, the cost is $4.3 to $4.45 trillion. Is bankrupting our country. 77% of American kids can't qualify for military service. 38% of teens, according to NIH's last report, which was 3 weeks ago, 38% are diabetic or pre-diabetic. When my uncle was president, the typical pediatrician would 1 or 2 cases of diabetes in his lifetime, juvenile diabetes. Today, it's more than a third of the kids who walk through his door or her door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. Autism rates have gone from 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1,500 to 1 in 10,000, depending on what study you look at. In my generation, as a 70-year-old man today, in our children, it's 1 in 34. The explosion, I had 11 siblings. I had dozens of first cousins.
Mr. Kennedy, I'm sorry. So, who are we? But what's your role as HHS secretary to fight that disease?
There's never been an HHS secretary who came in to do this. It was all about the typical partisan debate about how we allocate the cost, whether insurers pay it or whether hospitals, providers, or families pay it. And the costs continue to rise. All the things we're debating on, our kids are getting sicker and sicker.
Yeah, just to quote you from yesterday, it's like we're moving the chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, and the ship is sinking, and nobody's paying attention to it. And yesterday, I got question after question from the Democrats about measles. In 1963, the year before the measles epidemic, or the measles vaccine was introduced, 500 American kids died from measles, almost all of them extremely poor and malnourished. We have 252 million Americans who are suffering from chronic disease, and none of them mentioned diabetes. They didn't mention heart disease. They didn't mention cancers yesterday. We need to refocus if we're going to save our country. This is existential. Our country is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong.
Right.
It is going to be destroyed if we get this issue wrong. And I am in a unique position to be able to stop this epidemic.
Because they don't care, Mr. Kennedy. That's why. They don't really actually care about the actual problems. They have an agenda, and they're sticking to it, and that's that. So what do we need to do? They need to go. One of the main reasons why I've been so excited about this administration, he's the reason right there. I absolutely love what he does. He speaks about a lot of things that resonate with me big time. It's what led me down the path of politics and led me down the path of holistics and homeopath, because of having awareness to what they've done to the food supply. And it's a horror show. So like I said, I hold this one dear to me. So I would love to go to the supermarket and all the chemicals and products have changed and we're going on the path of health. Like Europe and just about every other developed nation in the world. Even Canada has much cleaner food than us. It's atrocious. It's ridiculous. It's really stupid at this point. And I think it's hit a boiling and breaking point. I pray to the gods that he gets in. He needs to get in. This is exactly who we need to make big changes. And I truly believe that it's going to happen. I really do. I'm blown away. I mean, in all honesty, I don't even know how to feel about any of this stuff anymore, because it's just like I've been railing on it for so long.
Only 6.8% of U.S. adults are metabolically healthy. 6.8. So that's 94% of U.S. adults are cardiometabolically busted. That was pre-lockdowns.
Why?
Food supply was significantly adulterated in the past few generations. Humans are actually eating the same amount or less calories than they were 30 years ago. It's not the caloric intake. It's not that people are sloths and they're lazy and they need to do better. It's that we are swimming in a toxic soup. We are eating a very adulterated, mineral deficient, protein deficient, chemical shitstorm of a food supply. Toxicity is a huge issue. What we're doing to ourselves. So many young women today are bathing themselves in toxic chemicals through their beauty habits. I mean, the nails and the hair and the skincare, and it's really, really severe. So we've got a lot of things coming at these young people.
And let's not wait for the government to make moves and changes. Bring matters into your own hands. Stop making better decisions, conscious choices. Pay attention. Stop doing research and make changes today. You don't have to buy these crap products. Yeah, like I said, that's just the subject that I hold very dear, and I've dedicated my life to being healthy and showing others what real health is. I'll argue to the day I die that health doesn't come from a needle. It doesn't come from a pill. You have to detox, get rid of all these chemicals that they've bombarded our body with. Let's make some moves, people. Let's do this. These are the things that matter. These are the big issues where if you're literally destroying the youth, the population, the elderly, everybody's getting sicker and sicker, and this is one of the major root causes. So rid it out. Let's go. They've sold us out a long time ago, and I really finally feel vindicated. I feel change is right there. It's right on the horizon. So if you're wondering why the other side, whatever side you're on, right? If you're on the side of fighting this, then you are corrupt. Simple as that. The curtain is fallen, and there's no way to hide anymore. Like, they're all exposed. I just hope you're on the right side of history here. If you like the content that we're bringing, please like, subscribe, share our channel. We greatly appreciate everybody who watches our stuff and is doing the work and just getting the word out. With that said, I hope you have a great day. Stay tuned for the next one. Until then, Valhalla.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. This is where they die. And these shields, boys. Remember this day, man, for it will be yours for all time.